The girl interrupted the kingdom's most sacred ceremony by lifting a cheap wooden portrait above her head. Every noble in the Hall of Moons turned toward her. Rainwater dripped from her patched red cloak onto the silver floor. Mud darkened her bare ankles, and one of her shoes had split along the side. She could not have been more than 12. Yet she stood between 2 rows of armored wolf guards, as if poverty had taught her something rank could not. When no one intends to hear you, fear is a luxury. At the far end of the hall, King Oriiel knelt before an empty throne. Behind it hung the official portrait of Queen Hrimina, who had vanished 11 winters before. By law, the king had to declare her dead before the last moon of that year, or surrender the crown to a new bloodline. He had refused for a decade. Tonight, surrounded by witnesses, he had finally raised the black mourning cup. The girl pointed first at the painted queen, and then at the little portrait in her hands. "Why does your lost queen look exactly like my mom?" The cup slipped from Oriel's fingers. It struck the steps without breaking, but the sound traveled through the hall like a bone snapping. The royal portrait showed Hrimina in a blue coronation gown, silver blonde hair braided beneath a moonstone crown. The crude picture the girl carried had been painted on a flower board by a traveling artist. Its woman wore a plain brown dress and had flower on one cheek. Yet the tilt of the eyes, the small notch in the left eyebrow, and the uneven curve of the mouth were the same. Even the 3 pale freckles beneath the right eye had been copied with startling care. Oriiel crossed the hall before his guards could stop him. His human face remained controlled, but amber light flooded his eyes. The first warning that the great white wolf inside him was near the surface. He did not seize the portrait. He crouched so the girl would not have to look up at a king. "What is your name?" "Tethina." "And your mother?" "Mina Vale." The shortened name struck harder than the resemblance. Hrimina had once signed private notes to him with only Mina, because she said queens were entitled to at least one name that did not belong to the kingdom. "Where is she?" Tethina's courage cracked. "Dying." The hall erupted. Lord Zorek, the king's uncle and commander of the Northern Council, demanded that the child be removed. Priests whispered of fraud. Noble families who had waited years to place a daughter beside Oriiel stared at Tethina as though she had brought a lit torch into a room full of oil. Oriiel heard none of them. He smelled rain, wood smoke, and beneath both, a trace carried on the portrait. Winter roses and cedar resin. Hrimina's scent. Faint, old, impossible. He rose with the little painting in his hands. "The declaration is suspended." Zorek stepped forward. "Your Majesty, the law..." "We'll wait until I have seen her mother. A resemblance can be manufactured." Oriiel looked at him. The wolf guards lowered their eyes, because his expression was no longer entirely human. "Then whoever manufactured it knows what my wife smelled like after rain." He left his crown on the empty throne and rode before midnight with Tethina, 6 guards, and Nyman, the palace healer. He did not take the royal road. Tethina led them east through flooded pine country, along cart tracks too narrow for banners. She refused the king's horse and rode her own stubborn gray mule, claiming kings might be able to command wolves, but could not be trusted with bristle. Oriiel had not laughed in the Hall of Moons for 11 years. The sound that escaped him was brief and astonished. Tethina studied him afterward with the grave suspicion of a child who had expected a monster and was annoyed to find a man. They reached the village of Reed Cross near dawn. Its cottages leaned toward one another beside a swollen river. Tethina led him to the poorest house, where bundles of healing plants hung beneath a leaking roof. A woman lay unconscious beside a cold hearth. Oriiel stopped in the doorway. Time had altered her. Hunger had sharpened her cheeks. A white scar crossed her right palm, and strands of silver-threaded hair that had once been pale gold. But there was no uncertainty. The bond under his breastbone, silent for 11 years, gave one broken pulse. Hrimina. Her eyes opened. They were gray, Not the luminous blue he remembered. They held no recognition. When he moved closer, she snatched a kitchen knife from beneath the blanket and placed herself between him and Tethina, despite being too weak to stand. "Do not call me that," she said. Her voice was the same. Oriel's wolf surged so violently that his knuckles struck the doorframe. He forced the beast down. A bonded wolf king could recognize his chosen mate beyond masks, distance, and ordinary spells, but Hrimina looked at him with the terror reserved for strangers who arrived wearing power. "My name is Mina," she said. "Take your soldiers out of my house." Oriel dismissed everyone except Nyman and Tethina. Then he removed his sword, cloak, rings, and the black chain marking him as king. He placed them outside in the mud. Only when he returned unarmed did Hrimina lower the knife. Nyman examined her fever. Beneath her hair, behind the left ear, he found a circle of tiny black thorns embedded in the skin. It was a memory seal, an art forbidden since the War of Hollow Names. Such a seal could not simply erase the past. It gave stolen memories to another vessel, leaving the victim alive, but cut away from the person she had been. Trying to break it by force would stop her heart. Tethina gripped her mother's hand. "Can you cure her?" Nyman's silence answered first. Oriel knelt beside the bed. "There may be one way. The Moonwell beneath the palace can restore what was taken from a bonded queen." Mina's gaze hardened. "I am not your queen. I know what I believe. I also know belief is not consent. I will not take you anywhere against your will." The answer unsettled her more than a command would have. She looked at Tethina, whose thin shoulders trembled from exhaustion. Reed Cross had no medicine strong enough to slow the black veins already spreading from the seal down Mina's neck. Going with Oriel might save her. It might also place them in the hands of the man whose portrait she had occasionally seen on tax proclamations, and secretly feared without knowing why. "My daughter comes with me," she said. "She does. No chains, no locked rooms, no titles." "Agreed. And if the well proves I am not Hrimina, you send us home with enough medicine for the winter." Oriel met her eyes. "If the well proves you are not Hrimina, I will still owe you for making me hope." They began the return, after Nyman stabilized her fever. Oriel rode apart from the others, because proximity to Mina woke fragments of their bond, and every fragment carried pain. He remembered her laughing as she taught wolf children to dance in human form. He remembered the night they chose each other in a private vow before agreeing to the public marriage. He remembered their last argument. She had discovered that villages near the northern mines were losing people, and he had delayed confronting Zorak because war threatened the border. She had accused him of protecting peace at the cost of truth. By sunrise, she was gone. For 11 years he had believed their argument was the final thing she heard from him. Mina watched him when she thought he would not notice. His courtesy did not fit the nightmares that had haunted her since Tethina's birth. Amber eyes in darkness, a white wolf running through fire, a man calling her name as water closed overhead. She had awakened 11 years earlier on a riverbank with no past, no possessions, and a newborn infant wrapped against her chest. The villagers had accepted the name Mina because it was the only sound she remembered. She had built a life from herbcraft her hands knew even when her mind did not. Now the child she had raised was studying the king's profile as if trying to solve a second mystery. "Do you think he is my father?" Tethina whispered. Mina's stomach tightened. "A face is not proof. I have his eyes." Tethina's eyes had always been brown. As she spoke, moonlight broke between the clouds, and amber flashed around her pupils. Every wolf guard saw it. Zorak's riders attacked before sunset. They wore no heraldry, but Oriel recognized the northern style of their saddles. An arrow struck Nyman's horse. Another carried a glass barb filled with black liquid, the same thorn poison beneath Mina's skin. Oriel shifted in motion. Bone and muscle rolled beneath his flesh, and a white wolf larger than any natural animal landed where the king had been. He drove the first attacker into the reeds, tore the reins from another, and placed his own body between the arrows and the cart carrying Mina. The sight should have terrified her. Instead, Mina's scarred palm burned. Without thought, she pressed it against the cart's wooden rail and spoke a word she did not understand. Silver roots burst from the earth. They wrapped around the attackers' horses without harming them and pulled 3 riders down. The effort opened the scar in her palm. Blood struck the wood, glowing briefly like moonlight on ice. The white wolf turned toward her. Recognition passed between them, not memory, but the knowledge of how they once fought together. He herded the remaining attackers toward her roots. She tightened them. The ambush ended in less than a minute. Oriiel returned to human form behind his cloak. Mina stared at the blood on her hand. "What did I do?" "You called the buried paths," he said. "No one else in Avara can command roots beneath winter ground." One captured rider bit through a poison bead before questioning. Another carried orders burned blank by moonlight. The third was a frightened stableman named Ebenel, not a soldier. He confessed that Zorak had taken his sister and forced him to ride. The commander's instruction had been precise. Kill Mina, but bring Tethina alive to the northern tower before the last moon. That changed the journey. The threat was no longer an attempt to preserve an old lie. Zorak needed something from the child. Oriiel wanted to hurry to the palace. Mina refused until Ebenel's wound was bound, and his sister's location recorded. If you abandon the people used by your enemies, you teach every desperate person that only your enemies will bargain with them. It was almost the same argument Hrimina had made 11 years earlier. Then, he had heard it as an accusation against his judgment. Now he heard the principle inside it. "We will free her," he promised. Mina studied him. "Do not promise because you remember loving someone with my face. I promise because you are right." That was the first moment she trusted him. Not with her past, not with Tethina, but with a single decision. At the palace, Oriiel did not put Mina in the queen's chambers. He gave her 3 adjoining rooms in the old astronomer's wing, where every door opened from the inside, and Tethina could see the royal wolf kennels below. He stationed guards. Mina selected herself after speaking to each one. When servants attempted to dress her in Hrimina's clothes, Oriiel sent the garments away before she had to refuse. "The child must be tested," Zorak said. "The woman must be healed," Oriiel answered. "If she is Hrimina, the Moonwell will tell us. And if someone has corrupted the well." For the smallest instant, Zorak's eyes moved toward Mina's scar. She noticed. So did Oriiel. They delayed the ritual and searched the archives. Tethina became their unexpected guide. Poverty had made her attentive to what wealthy people discarded. She crawled behind shelves, found old servant passages, and noticed that dust was missing from a cabinet everyone claimed had been unopened for a decade. Inside were Hrimina's investigations into the northern mines. Workers had not vanished randomly. They had been taken beneath the tower to feed a device called the Hollow Crown. The first Wolf Kings had bound their transformations to shared ancestral memory. Every crowned ruler carried echoes of earlier rulers, enough to learn control without surrendering identity. The Hollow Crown reversed that gift. It extracted memories, skills, and bonds from living people, then placed them inside a chosen vessel. With enough stolen lives, a man without royal blood could command every wolf in Avara. Hrimina had discovered that Zorak was building it. She had also discovered she was pregnant. Mina read the last line in her own handwriting 3 times. Her knees weakened, and Oriiel moved toward her, then stopped before touching her. "May I?" he asked. She nodded. His hand closed around her elbow. The contact sent a memory through both of them. Hrimina standing on a balcony, placing Oriel's palm over the slight curve of her belly. His astonished laugh. Their decision to tell no one until they knew which counselors could be trusted. The vision lasted 1 heartbeat. When it vanished, Mina was crying, and Oriiel had gone pale. "Tethina," he whispered. Mina pulled away, not in rejection but panic. One memory does not give you the right to claim her. No. Raising her gave you rights. Loving her gave you rights. I have only a truth I did not know. And what will a king do with that truth? Oriiel looked through the open archive door, where Tethina sat on the floor, teaching 2 wolf pups to steal biscuits from Niemann. Longing crossed his face with such naked force that Mina almost stepped toward him. "Ask her permission to know her," he said. That night, he told Tethina what the record suggested. He did not announce it from a throne. He sat with her on the kennel steps while the pups slept against her legs. Tethina asked whether queens' daughters had to become princesses. Oriiel said not unless they wished. She asked whether kings knew how to repair roofs. He admitted he did not, but could learn. Finally, she asked why he had not found them. "Because I searched for a queen," he answered. "I should have searched for a woman who might need help." Tethina considered this. "You can know me, but you cannot send Bristle away. I would not dare." The bargain made him her father in possibility. Not yet, in fact. Restoring Mina's memories required 3 keys: blood willingly offered by her child, a memory freely surrendered by her bonded partner, and the thorn seal's original anchor. Tethina could provide the first. Oriiel could provide the second, though the surrendered memory would be lost to him forever. The anchor remained hidden. Mina objected when she learned the cost. "You have lost 11 years. I will not take more." "You are not taking it. I am choosing." That distinction does not make the loss smaller. No, it makes it mine. They searched Hrimina's abandoned solar for clues. The room had been preserved but did not feel sacred. It felt interrupted. A half-finished wooden bird lay on the desk. Hrimina had carved animals when political meetings became unbearable. Mina picked it up and automatically reached for a knife to correct the left wing. Oriiel smiled. "You always made one wing too short. Then perhaps I was a poor carver. You said perfect birds had no reason to fly." The words opened another fragment. She saw herself and Oriiel younger, seated on the floor after a banquet, trading the burdens they hated most. She hated being treated as a symbol. He hated that his wolf obeyed anger more easily than mercy. They had fallen in love not during a rescue or prophecy, but through months of disagreeing honestly and returning the next day. Mina set the bird down. "I feel tenderness for memories I cannot hold. It is like hearing another woman loved you." Oriel's expression tightened. "I do not want you to perform her for me. What if she returns and Mina disappears? Then we find a way to save both." "You cannot promise that." "No, but I can refuse to prefer the woman I lost over the woman standing here." The honesty shifted something between them. Their old bond had been forged by a ritual. But what grew now came without magic. Attention, restraint, and the dangerous relief of being seen as a present person, rather than a recovered possession. Over the next 6 days they worked side by side. Mina mapped the black veins of her seal, and discovered they brightened near objects connected to the stolen memories. Oriiel opened court records he had once protected. Together they traced shipments from the northern mines to a sealed chamber beneath the Moonwell. Tethina listened at doors adults ignored, and learned that Zorik planned to invoke the succession challenge at the last moon, when Oriel's refusal to declare Hrimina dead would legally weaken his command over the Pax. Their investigation produced intimacy in inconvenient places. Oriiel learned Mina still drank bitter cedar tea when frightened. Mina learned he counted doorways whenever his wolf threatened to overwhelm him. She began counting softly with him after a counselor called her a grave robber wearing a dead queen's face. He, in turn, sat outside her room through a night of fever without entering until she asked. During that fever, she remembered the river, 11 years earlier, Hrimina had entered the northern tower alone because Zorek claimed to hold evidence that Oriiel planned to abandon the mining villages. She intended to expose both men if necessary. Instead, she found the first completed segment of the Hollow Crown and prisoners whose identities had already been drained. Zorek attacked her with a memory thorn. Hrimina fought, used the buried paths to collapse the chamber, and escaped while in labor. The thorn had taken most of her life before she reached the river. Knowing Zorek would hunt a queen and royal infant, she used her remaining magic to alter her own scent and send the cradle downstream under a shield of roots. The spell saved Tethina, but completed the separation of Hrimina's memories. The memory ended with a missing piece. Hrimina had torn the thorn's anchor from Zorek and hidden it before fleeing. She could not remember where. When Mina woke, Oriiel was holding her hand. She did not pull away. "You argued with me before you left," she said. "Yes. Part of me expected you to lie. I have lied to myself about that night for years. I called my delay caution. It was fear of dividing the kingdom. Would you make the same choice now?" "No." "Because you lost me?" "Because losing you proved that peace built on unheard suffering is only quiet." Mina touched the scar near his jaw, a mark he had received searching the river ravines. The bond pulsed again, but she kept her hand there after the magic faded. Oriiel leaned closer, slowly enough for refusal. She kissed him first. It was not the return of an old marriage. It was uncertain, restrained, and alive with grief for the years neither could recover. When they separated, Mina whispered, "I do not know if that was hers or mine." "It was yours," he said. "She never kissed me as if she might argue afterward." Mina laughed against his shoulder. The sound opened no memory at all, which made it more precious. "If this mystery of stolen identity and chosen love has drawn you in, stay with them, because the truth beneath the Moonwell will demand more than recognition." The anchor revealed itself the next morning. Tethina tried to finish the wooden bird and cut into its hollow body. A black crystal fell from inside. Hrimina had hidden the thorn's anchor in an object Zorek would dismiss as sentimental, and Oriiel would preserve because it was imperfect. They prepared the restoration ritual in secret, but Zorek moved first. He presented forged testimony that Mina had bewitched the king and demanded the succession challenge begin immediately. Half the pack lords gathered in the Hall of Moons. Under ancient law, Oriiel had to demonstrate unbroken command of the ancestral wolves. Zorek expected him to fail because the Hollow Crown had been siphoning the shared memory from beneath the palace for years. 2 nights before the challenge, however, Oriiel fulfilled the promise he had made beside the road. Ebonel led them to a quarry where Zorek kept the families of men he coerced. The prison was cut into a chalk cliff and guarded by wolves, whose memories had been hollowed until they obeyed any hand carrying a black thorn. A direct royal assault would have driven those animals into a killing frenzy, so Mina devised another way. She and Oriiel entered disguised as medicine traders, while Tethina remained with Nyman in a forester's shelter 3 miles away. It was the first time Mina willingly left her daughter under the king's protection, and Oriiel understood the trust hidden inside that practical choice. Within the quarry, they found 40 prisoners mining pale crystal used to contain stolen memories. Ebonel's sister, Tethina's age worn into an adult face, recognized no one. Zorek's artificers had taken her memory of her brother to punish his disobedience. Oriiel wanted to break the overseer's neck when the man laughed about it. Mina caught his wrist. "One doorway," she murmured. He forced his breathing to slow. "2 doorways," she continued, looking toward the exits. "The gate and the drainage tunnel. We need both." His anger became a plan. Oriiel provoked the guards at the gate, while Mina descended through the drainage channel and touched the buried roots beneath the cliff. She could not command the hollowed wolves, but she could raise a web of cedar scent around them. The smell reached something older than their stolen training. One by one, the animals lay down, confused but no longer violent. The prisoners escaped through the second doorway. Ebenel carried his sister into the rain, repeating childhood details she could not yet remember. The blue cup she had broken, the song their father sang badly, the time she bit him over a honey cake. None restored her, but each gave her a thread to hold until the stolen vessel could be found. When an overseer cornered Mina at the tunnel mouth, Oriiel shifted only his right hand. Claws appeared, precise and controlled, stopping against the man's throat without cutting it. For years, Oriiel had believed strength meant releasing the wolf and mastering the consequences. Mina had shown him another form, choosing exactly how much power a moment required. They returned after dawn. Tethina ran first to her mother, then to Oriiel. Her arms caught them both, and for one awkward instant, the three stood as a family before any of them had agreed what that word permitted. Mina felt Oriiel begin to step away so he would not presume. She caught the edge of his sleeve and kept him there. Later, while the freed prisoners slept in the astronomer's wing, Mina cleaned chalk dust from a cut across Oriel's shoulder. He sat shirtless beside the wash basin, keeping carefully still whenever her fingers passed near an old scar. She recognized several marks from memories that had begun to return. A boar hunt, a border revolt, the river search. One scar beneath his collarbone was unfamiliar. "Zorik gave me that one," he said. "The night I accused him of killing you. He demanded proof. I had none, and grief made me careless. Why did you let him remain commander? Because he controlled 4 northern packs, and I believed removing him without proof would begin a civil war." Mina tied the bandage more tightly than necessary. Again, peace at the cost of truth. Again, he admitted. He did not defend the choice. That mattered more than an apology shaped to please her. Mina loosened the bandage and retied it correctly. "The woman I was loved you," she said. "The woman I became is beginning to understand why, but understanding you is not the same as excusing you. I would trust you less if it were." She rested her palm against his chest. His heart beat under a web of faint silver lines, evidence that the hollow crown was draining the ancestral bond. If you lose your wolf, what happens to the throne? The old law says I cease to be king. And what do you say? That I was born with a wolf. I had to learn to become a man. It would be strange if the easier inheritance mattered more. She kissed the silver lines above his heart, an intimate gesture neither memory nor necessity supplied. Oriiel closed his eyes but did not pull her closer until she touched his hand and placed it at her waist. Their desire carried the shape of old familiarity and new permission at once. When they kissed, there was no sudden magical flare, no prophecy confirming them. Mina preferred it that way. For the first time, what passed between them belonged only to the present. They stopped before urgency turned tenderness into escape. Tethina slept in the next room. Prisoners needed care, and a kingdom waited beyond the door. Oriiel touched his forehead to Mina's. "If we survive the last moon, I want ordinary difficulties with you." "Such as?" "Leaking roofs, disobedient mules, your habit of leaving knives in books." "Hrimina did that?" "Mina does. You cut an apple over the mine ledgers yesterday and forgot the knife between 2 tax reports." She smiled. "Then perhaps some traits survive any spell." The rescued prisoners also brought proof. One woman remembered being ordered to polish a silver pipe installed beneath the Moonwell. A miner had hidden a shipment token in his boot. Nyman matched the quarry crystal to dust found around the supposedly sealed archive cabinet. Each fact connected Zorik to the hollow crown, without relying on Mina's disputed identity. Oriiel sent copies to every pack lord, but Zorik intercepted enough messengers to preserve doubt. He did not need the court to believe him forever. He needed division for one night. That afternoon, Tethina asked Mina what would happen if the restoration worked. "Will you still remember teaching me to make nettle soup?" Mina had no honest reassurance. I will fight too. That is not the same. No. Tethina turned to Oriiel. And if she forgets us? Then we tell her the truth without deciding what she must feel about it. What if she remembers being queen and does not want Reedcross anymore? Mina sat beside her daughter. A restored memory cannot make your childhood less mine. I may change. You may change. Loving someone is not freezing them at the moment you feel safest. Tethina cried then, angrily and without elegance. Mina held her. Oriiel remained near the window until the girl reached one hand toward him. He joined them only after that invitation. The three did not promise that restoration would return everything untouched. They promised to meet one another afterward as people, not roles. Oriiel entered the circle. 12 spectral wolves appeared around him, then flickered. The court gasped. Zorek smiled. Mina could have remained hidden until the ritual. Instead, she walked into the hall, wearing her plain Reedcross dress. She carried no crown. Tethina walked beside her, holding the wooden bird. I accuse this king of delaying truth to preserve peace, Mina said. Today he risks his crown to uncover it. Can the challenger say the same? Zorek ordered her arrested. That exposed what his legal performance had tried to hide. Only the reigning king could command guards during a challenge, yet 3 northern captains obeyed Zorek. Their betrayal divided the hall. The first clash was brief and brutal. Oriiel refused to shift because the failing ancestral bond might trap him as a wolf. Mina called roots through the palace foundations, but every use strengthened the poison in her seal. Tethina crawled beneath the empty throne and found a narrow stair, described in Hrimina's notes. Nymen and Ebonel, whose sister had been rescued from a northern convoy that morning, led loyal guards after her. Below the Moonwell, they found hundreds of glass vessels filled with stolen memories. Voices pressed against the crystal like moths against windows. At the center stood the hollow crown, a ring of black branches connected to silver pipes that rose into the well. Feressa, Zorek's chief artificer, guarded it. She had designed the device after royal soldiers ignored the destruction of her village, believing power should belong to whoever could seize it. Tethina did not defeat her with strength. She showed her Ebonel's rescued sister, who could no longer remember her own child because the crown had fed on her. You built the same silence that hurt you, Tethina said. Feressa hesitated. It was enough for Nymen to sever one pipe, but the crown awakened. The stolen memories poured toward Tethina, drawn by royal blood. She screamed as lives that were not hers crowded her mind. Above, Oriiel felt his daughter's pain through the unfinished family bond. His control broke. The white wolf emerged, vast and furious. But Zorek wore a hidden shard of the hollow crown. With it, he commanded Oriiel to kill Mina. The wolf turned toward her. Courtiers fled. Mina remained inside the circle. She could not overpower the command, and using more root magic would let the thorn reach her heart. Instead, she repeated the first boundary she had given Oriiel in Reedcross. No chains, no locked rooms, no titles. The wolf advanced. You agreed, she said. Not because you remembered loving me, because I was right. His claws split the silver floor one step from her. Zorek forced the shard deeper into his palm. Mina held out her scarred hand. Choose again. Oriel's jaws closed around her wrist without biting. The command demanded blood. He shifted just enough for a human hand to emerge from white fur and crush the shard. The act broke his connection to the ancestral wolves. Every spectral shape vanished. Oriiel collapsed in human form, no longer certain he could ever transform again. He had surrendered the power that made him king, rather than violate her trust. Zorek called it proof of weakness, and descended to claim the completed crown. Mina followed despite the black veins reaching her jaw. Oriiel tried to rise. You cannot fight him like this. I am not letting you go alone again." "Then come as Oriiel," she said, helping him stand. "Not as the Wolf King." They reached the chamber as Zorik placed the hollow crown on his head. Every vessel shattered. Stolen memories flooded him, giving him the voices of miners, healers, soldiers, mothers, and children. For an instant, he possessed more knowledge than any ruler in history. Then the cost appeared. Memory was not skill without identity. It was obligation, grief, contradiction, and love. Zorik had designed the crown to take power while discarding pain, but the two could not be separated. He staggered beneath hundreds of lives. Still, his will remained strong enough to aim their combined magic at Tethina. She was the only blood heir who could permanently stabilize the crown. Mina placed the black anchor against her seal. The Moonwell could restore her now, but the ritual required Oriiel's surrendered memory. He chose the night they had first vowed themselves to each other, the happiest memory he possessed. "No," Mina said. "If you lose that, you lose the beginning of us." "Beginnings are not promises," he answered. "What we choose after them is." He pressed his forehead to hers and released the memory. Silver light passed from him into the anchor. His face changed as the night disappeared from his mind. He remembered that he had loved Hrimina, but not when he first knew it. Not the words they spoke. Not the way her hand trembled in his. Tethina cut her thumb and added one willing drop of blood. The seal opened. Hrimina's memories returned not as a flood that erased Mina, but as doors opening inside the same house. She remembered childhood in the root villages, training as a pathcaller, meeting Oriiel, challenging him, desiring him, choosing him. She remembered pregnancy, betrayal, the river, and 11 years as Mina. Hunger, work, Tethina's first word, winter illnesses, laughter beneath a leaking roof. Queen and village healer were not rivals. Each had survived what the other could not. With the whole pattern restored, she understood the hollow crown's hidden weakness. It had been grown from roots she originally awakened beneath the northern tower. Zorik could steal memories because Hrimina's magic connected them, but he could not own a connection that had never consented to him. She did not attack the crown. She offered every trapped memory a path home. Silver roots spread through the chamber and touched the broken vessels. Across Avara, miners woke remembering their children. Soldiers recalled the orders they had been forced to forget. Feressa fell to her knees as the memories of her village returned to their surviving owners, and she finally understood how many new villages she had sacrificed to avenge one. The crown emptied. Zorik shrank beneath it, suddenly only one man wearing stolen branches. He lunged for Tethina. Oriiel, without ancestral power, met him. He fought as a man who had spent 11 years believing love was something he had failed to protect. Zorik was stronger under the remnants of the crown, but Tethina threw Oriiel the imperfect wooden bird. Inside its hollow body remained a sliver of memory thorn. Oriiel drove it into the crown's central knot, a weakness planted from the moment Hrimina hid the anchor. The black branches split. Zorik fell. The Moonwell cracked. Water surged through the chamber, repeating the shape of the river where Hrimina had vanished. This time, Oriiel did not lose her in it. He caught Tethina while Hrimina called roots into a bridge. Feressa held the broken pipes apart, buying them time at the cost of burns across both arms. Ebenel carried his sister. Nyman guided the prisoners. They escaped together as the chamber collapsed and the stolen machinery disappeared beneath clean water. At dawn, the Hall of Moons was full again. Oriiel stood before the nobles without spectral wolves, a crown, or certainty that ancient law would recognize him. Zorik's crimes had been exposed through the returned memories of hundreds, but removing a traitor did not automatically restore a king. Oriiel offered abdication. "If command over dead rulers is the only proof I am fit to lead the living, then Avara should choose another measure. The pack lords argued. Some feared a king who could no longer shift. Others had recovered memories of their complicity, documents ignored, workers dismissed, silence purchased. One by one, villagers from the northern mines entered the hall. They did not kneel, they testified. Hrimina stood beside Tethina, still wearing the brown dress. When asked whether she reclaimed the empty throne, she answered, "Not as the woman who left it. I will serve only if Reedcross and every forgotten village receives a voice in this hall, if memory magic is placed beyond royal ownership, and if no bond, political or magical, is treated as consent." Oriiel accepted before the nobles could object. Then he turned to her in front of the kingdom. Their old marriage remained legal, but legality was not the question between them. "Hrimina, called Mina by those who knew the life you built, I remember that we chose each other once. I no longer remember how it began. I will not ask you to fill that absence with duty. Will you let me court you as the person you are now?" She looked at the man who had surrendered his wolf, rather than break a promise made in a poor cottage. She looked at Tethina, trying and failing to hide a smile. Then she placed the imperfect wooden bird in Oriel's hands. "You may begin by learning to repair a roof." The hall laughed, uncertainly at first, then with relief. Oriel bowed as solemnly as if she had granted him a kingdom. Rebuilding did not happen in a single celebration. Zorik faced judgment by representatives from every harmed village. Faressa accepted a sentence of service restoring the memories she had helped steal. Mercy did not erase accountability, but punishment did not require wasting the knowledge needed to repair the damage. The Hollow Crown's fragments were sealed separately beneath living trees, whose roots would expose any attempt to reunite them. Oriel's wolf did not return for months. Without it, he experienced the palace differently. Doors were heavier, journeys took longer. Threats could not be frightened into silence by amber eyes. He began listening before command became necessary. Some nobles mistook that change for weakness, and discovered that a human king could still remove corrupt governors, redistribute mine ownership, and rewrite succession law with formidable precision. Hrimina divided her time between the palace and Reedcross. She refused to abandon the cottage, so Oriel traveled there without banners, and learned that roof repair required fewer royal decrees and more balance than expected. His first row of shingles slid into the herb garden. Tethina laughed so hard, she fell off the fence. Hrimina laughed with her, and Oriel realized he did not need the lost memory of their first vow to recognize love happening again. Their courtship was not a repetition. Hrimina now disliked crowded rooms more than she once had. Oriel had become quieter. They argued about justice, parenting, and whether Bristle could be allowed inside the council chamber. They learned when to persist and when to leave space. On the anniversary of the river, Hrimina woke from nightmares and asked Oriel to stay. He lay beside her without demanding that comfort become desire. Weeks later, beneath the Reedcross cedar tree, she chose him again, with no priest, crown, or magic present. Tethina chose more slowly. She allowed Oriel to teach her sword forms, then informed him his method was inefficient. She asked him to attend a village market as her father, but forbade royal clothing. When a merchant recognized him and bowed into a basket of onions, Tethina decided the disguise needed work. The first time she called him father without planning to, both pretended not to notice until she rolled her eyes and hugged him. On the first winter moon, the three returned to the Hall of Moons. The empty throne had been removed. In its place stood a round table made from timber, recovered from the collapsed northern tower. Seats belonged not only to pack lords, but to healers, miners, farmers, and villages that had once existed only as numbers in tax ledgers. Hrimina wore no moonstone crown. Tethina carried the cheap wooden portrait that had interrupted the mourning ceremony. It now hung beside the official image, not beneath it. One showed a queen in blue silk. The other showed a mother with flower on her cheek. Visitors often asked which woman was the real Hrimina, Tethina always gave the same answer. Both. That was the whole problem. During the ceremony, a white wolf appeared at the forest edge beyond the windows. Oriiel felt the shape of his own beast return, not as the command of dead kings, but as a living part of himself. He could have shifted before the court and restored the old symbol of power. Instead, he took Hrimina's hand and waited. "Are you afraid it will control you?" she asked. "No. I am deciding whether this moment needs it." It did not. They walked outside as themselves. Tethina ran ahead with Bristle, who remained unimpressed by kings in every form. Snow began to fall over the repaired roofs and the roads leading north. Hrimina paused beneath the moon, feeling both lives inside her. The queen who had uncovered a crime, and the poor mother who had survived its cost. Oriiel could not remember the first time he promised to love her, but he remembered every choice they had made since the girl raised a portrait in the hall. He touched the wooden bird tucked into his coat. Its wings were still uneven. This time, when Hrimina took his hand, neither memory nor magic compelled her. She chose him with the freedom they had nearly lost, and together they followed their daughter home.